Hi, my name is Bob Brown and welcome to No Particular Topic. Well, I'm going to talk about one of my cases from 2002, but before that, I want to go over something which always helped me, and that is the ability to compartmentalize. And what do I mean by that? That is the ability to separate what's in front of you from the emotional aspects of what's in front of you. And the stuff that I saw, I, some of it was just unbelievably brutal. Well, I had some early training on the ability to do that. You see, my parents used to argue every single day, and I would just simply go into my room, turn on my TV, and block everything out. I was able to separate what was going on outside my bedroom door from what was in front of me. Well, that came in real handy when I went through the academy as well, because they used to yell right there in your face and scream and yell at you. Well, my mom did that to me. She used to sit there and scream at me sometimes, and I don't know what she said because I would just look at her and I left the building. I just look at her and she'd be yelling and yelling. Then she goes, "Do you hear me?" And I just go, "Yeah." Thank God she never asked me to repeat anything back because I couldn't tell you one word she said, not one. But it came in handy when I went through the academy because that's what they did there too. They sat there and screamed at you, and it just didn't faze me. I just kind of left the building. Well, when it comes to traffic homicide, that's a really good attribute because I had someone recently say, "I don't think I could do your job. The stuff that you saw." Well, and I explained to him, I go, "Well, I was able to separate myself from what I was staring directly at in the emotional aspects." So imagine a box. Inside that box, there's more boxes. One of those boxes is your emotions. And then the other box is, well, just your logical, your logic. Well, I would take that emotional box out, set it aside, and no problem. Well, until this particular case, this was the first and only case where somehow that emotional box that was over here jumped back into that big box. And it caught me so off guard because this case was, in my mind, so disturbing. And it's an image I can never get out of my head to this day. So I try not to think about it. I'm hoping I can get through this story without coming apart at the seams, if you will. Because everything that happened in this case happened in the blink of an eye. This case involved three people: a father, a mother, and a child. Well, the father owned a landscaping business, and that particular day, which was a Sunday afternoon, he was going to go help his brother out and do his lawn and take care of that kind of stuff. Well, meanwhile, the mother, she was in the kitchen and the child was standing right next to her. Now, let me just give you the layout. So let's take a look at that real quick. Here's an overview of the general location. Let's zoom in a bit. And that's the house which involves this case. It also involves a landscaping truck and its trailer. That's where those two vehicles were when I got there. Here's a street level view of that truck and trailer. Look at the box at the lower left with two images inside of it. Those are the original images. What I did was, just for this, I merged the two so you could see everything as one complete image. That truck and trailer is the only image I manipulated. All the rest of the images you're going to see are as shot. However, I did enhance the images for a better viewing experience, but I did not alter any of the content within the frame. As a reminder, this incident was in 2002. In 2002, well, we used film back then, 35 millimeter film cameras. So what would happen is we'd take the shots of the scene, put the film in the mail, and it'd go through the department up to Tallahassee, Florida, to our photo lab. They would make 3x5 photos for us. They'd keep the negatives, send those to us. And that was a bit of a turnaround time. How inconvenient was that? Well, digital cameras were really new back then, and they weren't great cameras by any stretch, but they were available. Well, I went out and bought my own digital camera. It was that one, the Olympus C3030, and it had 3.1 effective megapixels. All of the pictures you're about to see were taken with that camera. But what I would do is, on scene, I would take a shot with the state camera, and then I'd take my camera and take a shot, exact same shot, with it. So now I had instant photos, and I could access them instantly on my computer. Listen, even back then, I knew the future was digital cameras. Our department approached it, I guess, kicking and screaming, and it took them many years to finally give in and go to digital. All right, now let's take a look at, I guess, the basics of how this incident happened. This is kind of a crude layout, but it does give you an idea of what happened. The mother was in the kitchen doing dishes. Her child was right next to her doing whatever, and the father was in the truck getting ready to drive outside of the gate. Okay, so here's what happened. The mom is there washing the dishes, and the little girl, again, is right next to her, but she looks out the window while the sliding doors, which were open, and she sees her dad in the truck. Well, kids are just impulsive. They just do what they do on a whim. We see it all the time in grocery stores, in the mall, in anywhere. 1 second the kid is right by your side. The next thing they're halfway down to wherever. And then you see the parent, hey, and then chase their kid. Well, that's what happened here. The little girl darts out the sliding doors, and her dad just starts to pull away in the truck. And she makes it out the screen door. And as she goes out that door, her mom sees her and screams out to the kid, yelling. But kids are myopic. They just want what they want when they want it, and they have no sense of fear at 1 year old or danger. So as the child ran towards the truck already pulled away some, and she trips and falls right in front of the rear trailer tires. Her mom ran towards her, and the tires run over her child's head right in front of her. Then her father, the little girl's father, the husband, is outside the gate at this point, and he gets out of his truck, and he just hears his wife screaming hysterically, and he's just, oh, what's the matter? And he goes over there and sees this. Anyway, here's some of the images from the scene. If you look at that arrow and the inside of that screening, you'll see the sliding glass doors. They were open at the time. That's where the little girl ran out from the kitchen. From there, she ran through the screen door and out into the yard. At that point, the trailer moved forward with the little girl running parallel and in the same direction, with her mother screaming and desperately trying to get to her. Unfortunately and tragically, the little girl fell in front of those tires, and subsequently, those tires ran over her entire body, which caused her head to explode. And her mother saw all of that. Under that blue tarp was the final rest of that little girl. As part of our job, we have to document everything. That includes measuring the entire scene, photographing the entire scene, taking in evidence if it's necessary, doing interviews, going to autopsies. Then you got to write the reports, and then if needed or if necessary, make charges. They could be infractions or they could be criminal. Well, in the course of photographing this particular incident, it went just like it always did up until I went to photograph that little girl. And when I looked through the viewfinder of that camera and I looked down, and her body filled the entire frame of my camera. And then I don't know what happened. It just hit me, and I'm like, I mean, there's these little feet with these dark black shoes on. And remember I mentioned it was a Sunday afternoon. Well, apparently they went to church that day, and it's a Latin family, and they tend to dress up quite a bit for church. And the ladies a lot of times will wear these beautiful white dresses. And this little girl, wore this most prettiest white dress, and her little hands there. So as I started to take the pictures, I couldn't see her anymore. And I'm like, what's going on? You know, because all of this caught me off guard, and my eyes were so full of water. And I just found that I'm coming apart at the seams. And I had to stop and step back and walk away. And that's what I did. And I walked away, and I'm like, Jesus, Bob, get your shit together. You have a job to do. And that's what I did. I just recomposed myself and photographed the little girl. And then after that, I had to go interview the parents. Oh my God. It was horrible. And the thing is, when you do interviews, you want to get them there at the scene while everything is fresh in someone's mind. Because I find if you wait too long, well, memories shift a little bit. So it's always good to get your interviews right then and there. Well, you know, I remember I'm trying to put this back together again. I mean, I could still see it like I'm right there. I'm in the living room. By now, it's getting really dark out, and the mother is on a couch to my left, your right, and the father is on the same couch next to her to my right, your left, and I'm just directly in front of them. There's also a victim's advocate that's a person from the sheriff's department there to help them cope with the moment. And these were such nice people. The pain and agony in this woman permeated the entire room. It was so powerful. I was like, oh my God, this poor, how does somebody live with that? I I don't know, but I got through the interview, and let me just say, it wasn't easy. And finally, I didn't charge them with anything because they didn't do anything wrong. It was just a horrible, horrible accident. And there's no criminal anything here. I don't even think there was negligence. I think it's just one of those moments that happens to every parent where their kid just darts off, but 99.9% of the time, nothing happens. This wasn't one of those times. And that poor woman, she has to live with this for the rest of her life. And can you imagine? If I have troubles with that image, can you imagine her and her husband? Well, ultimately, they were so devastated. And these were like the nicest, nicest people. They were so devastated, they couldn't live in that house anymore. And what they did was they moved. They left the country altogether. They went back home to Guatemala. And that was the end of that. If interested, I do have another YouTube channel. It's called 8 and 35 millimeter Restoration. On that channel, I posted a whole bunch of my old home movies. Some of them I shot in sound and some were silent. Of the silent ones, I did add some music, voiceovers, and sound effects on some of them. I also have a whole bunch of tutorials on how to digitize and process 8 millimeter movies, still photography slides, photographs, and negatives. If you're interested, I did put a link in the description below.